Hi, I'm Jim Shelton. Since the 1970s, my family and I have been actively involved in the Pentecostal and Charismatic movement. It all began when my mother experienced the baptism of the Holy Spirit, evidenced by speaking in tongues, during a women's Bible study at our local Baptist church. This transformative encounter ignited a hunger for a spirit filled community, leading us to attend independent charismatic churches in rural southern Indiana. In middle school, I too received the baptism of the Holy Spirit. I vividly remember being immersed in the Spirit of God and receiving my prayer language. Looking back over my life and ministry since then, I can identify incredible moments where the Holy Spirit demonstrated wisdom, power, conviction, and witness in remarkable ways. Currently, I am pursuing ministry credentials with the Assemblies of God, a journey that connects my life and future ministry to the rich history and foundation of this movement. As the saying goes, how can you know where you want to go until you look back at where you have been? We have to look back to look forward. Reflecting on the rich history and foundation of the Assemblies of God, I recognize five essential areas that have shaped its legacy, and I am enthusiastic that they will play a vital role in its future and the future of ministry with them. The first is strong doctrine. The core doctrinal beliefs from the early mothers and fathers of the Assemblies of God provide a solid framework for ministry and faith today. Its evangelical doctrinal foundations, including the baptism in the Holy Spirit, speaking in tongues, and the restoration of the spiritual gifts, will continue to be a strong biblical foundation to build ministry on in every future generation. The same baptism in the Holy Spirit that our spiritual fathers and mothers received at the Azusa Street Revival is still available to our children and grandchildren. The second essential area from the past that will carry us into the future is the focus of a personal spiritual experience. John W. Welch, known affectionately as Daddy Welch, a senior statesman in the Assemblies of God during its early decades, said this: as Christ lives in you, he dethrones the self life. These early pioneers not only walked in personal holy living, but also walked in an expectancy and had a deep hunger for more and more of God. And how much more should we today walk in that same expectancy, that same holy living, dethroning our self life and letting Christ live in us? The third is missions. From its inception, the Assemblies of God has been passionate about missions, whether reaching unreached people groups or supporting local communities. This commitment to global evangelism remains central. From the beginning, great men and women were sent around the world. Alice E. Luce, a spirit baptized Anglican missionary to India who transferred to the Assemblies in 1915, influenced the Assemblies of God to adopt indigenous church principles long before it was embraced by most mainline Protestant groups. These principles guide missions around the world today. The fourth is ethnic diversity. It is a very important part of the Assemblies of God today and definitely its future. We can look back and see moments where God has brought healing and highlighted the importance of diversity through powerful events like the Memphis Miracle in 1994. However, nothing highlights this more than the fact that one of the main founding fathers is William J. Seymour, an African American holiness preacher in the early 1900s. The fifth and final essential area that I want to talk about that we can look back and see from the beginning of the Assembly of God movement and that will carry us into the future is evangelism. Actually, it goes back a lot farther. It goes back to the book of Acts, where we find in Acts 1:8 the reason the Holy Spirit was being poured out in power was to give us that power to be His witness. May the bright flame of the Holy Spirit, the power of the Holy Spirit that lit the torch of the early pioneers of the assemblies of God, be passed on to each of us in evangelism, ethnic diversity, missions, doctrine, and personal holy living. Be blessed.